Good afternoon. I'm Lynn Rogers, Lieutenant Governor of the state of Kansas. One of my favorite events each year in Wichita is the Big Read, presented by the National Endowment for the Arts and Arts Midwest. I've been a fan since the very first year of the Big Read in Wichita, when the library selected My Antonia by Willa Cather. I'm a Kansan by way of Nebraska, so that book to me was a great way to introduce such an important community event. The University of Wisconsin Parkside Library was featured in a question and answer with the National Endowment for the Arts and Arts Midwest about the Big Read, saying the NEA Big Read exposes people to new genres and ideas and challenges their current taste in literature. Although this year's title is a work of fiction, this statement resonates with me because it highlights the purpose of reading, to challenge interests, tastes, and ideas, to become informed and well-rounded people. And what better places to have in our community to challenge our thinking than the public library? During the COVID-19 pandemic, I'm sure a lot of people either picked up reading as a form of entertainment or continued their practice of reading by exploring new titles, authors, and genres. Studies show that reading for pleasure reduces stress, heightens empathy, and makes us more active and aware citizens. People who spend time outside of work reading for pleasure also have far higher reading comprehension, retention, and are more likely to be culturally and civically engaged residents. Many people join book clubs or community reading programs like the Big Read because they create opportunities to explore issues that are relevant to our lives and inspires conversation and discovery. That's the beauty of reading and getting lost in a book. It lets you think outside the box and see the world a different way. Each year, the National Endowment for the Arts awards libraries, arts organizations, and nonprofit groups grants to host their own book community reading celebrations. And I'm proud to say that Wichita has once again been awarded $15,000 for this year's virtual Big Read program. This is a testament to the creative spirit of Kansans in picking a book and building community programs around its characters and themes. That's not an easy task, but I know Kansans will work hard at any challenge thrown their way. I'm honored to serve as an honorary co-chair for this community-wide reading event. I hope you'll pick up your copy of Circe by Madeline Miller this evening at the free book giveaway and virtually join your community in discussion and exploration of a good book. Happy reading, Wichita.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Lynn Rogers, for that warm welcome to the Big Read Wichita. Hello, my name is Annette Lawless with KAKE TV. On behalf of the Big Read Wichita, I'd like to welcome you to this year's virtual kickoff celebration. We hope this program will inspire you to spend the next 6 weeks reading, celebrating, learning, and discussing this year's one book community read, Circe by Madeline Miller. Normally, we would already have celebrated the Big Read in person back in October, but due to gathering limits from the COVID-19 pandemic, the planning team chose to postpone this Big Read and go virtual. But don't fret, you're in for a treat this afternoon. Throughout today's program, you'll be delighted with a harp performance, cooking demonstration, and so much more. And be sure you watch until the end so you can learn about the secret spot to pick up your free copy of Circe. This is the 13th year of the Big Read in Wichita. The Big Read is an initiative of the National Endowment for the Arts in partnership with Arts Midwest that broadens our understanding of our world, our communities, and ourselves to the joy of sharing a good book. The NEA Big Read aims to inspire conversation and discovery by showcasing a diverse range of titles that reflect many voices and perspectives. Over the last 13 years, we've explored some great, diverse stories, including classics like The Great Gatsby, works of fiction like The Maltese Falcon, and memoirs like last year's Lab Girl. But how did the Big Read get started in Wichita? We sat down with Cynthia Berner, former Director of Libraries, and Julie Sherwood, Education and Engagement Manager at the Wichita Public Library, to share this journey.
I'm Cynthia Berner, the former Director of the Wichita Public Library.
I'm Julie Sherwood, the Education and Engagement Manager at Wichita Public Library.
I love that we are here in the Great Hall of Wichita Art Museum because this is where the Big Read Wichita got its start in a couple of ways. The first one was when we had a visit from Dana Joya, who was the former head of the National Endowment for the Arts. And he came to Wichita in 2008 to talk about the importance of the arts. And in his remarks, which were here in this space, he talked about a new program called the Big Read. And he looked out over the crowd and he said, if there are librarians in the room, you need to apply for this grant now. And he really meant now, because the application was due in a week. With the help of Vicki T. Hart, who is the spouse of then Congressman Todd T. Hart, we were able to get just a slight extension on that application deadline. A group of people came together, we submitted our first application, which was successful, and that was the start of Big Read Wichita.
The first Big Read that we had was My Antonia by Willa Cather. And we felt that that was the best one to start with because it was set on the prairie in the late 1800s, and we thought a lot of people would enjoy the history of that. We felt that there was a lot of organizations in the community that could be good resources for us, and we really had a great partner effort on that first Big Read. It was new to all of us, and so we were making up the way our program was going to work from the very beginning. We had a really great keynote from Sister Charlotte from Newman University, who was a professor of history and knew an enormous amount about Willa Cather and her life and her work. And I think that was an amazing year for our Big Read.
Even though it was the first year, and it was a learning experience for everybody along the way, as Julie said, I think things just really came together for us. Sister Charlotte, an expert here in town on Willa Cather. Another thing that I just still remember so clearly is going to the Wichita Board of Education to talk to them about the Big Read and encouraging them to participate, and finding out that now Lieutenant Governor Lynn Rogers, who was then a member of the school board, was born and raised in Nebraska. And if you are a Nebraskan, Willa Cather and My Antonia are very close to your heart. So he immediately became one of the big champions of the Big Read to go through. And it was really something that did resonate with everybody. And it was just great fun. And it was a great opportunity to bring Wichita together for a literary project. In the 2 years before Big Read Wichita started, the Wichita Public Library was kind of the local arrangements sponsor for the governor's Kansas Book Festival. And when we learned that that wouldn't return to Wichita in the third year, we found out how many people had really wanted and appreciated a community, a larger event for supporting understanding of literature and sharing the experience of books and authors. So I think the timing of the start of the Big Read was just ideal to capture the momentum from those book festivals and carry forward. I think everybody knows, that literacy is important, but so often it's done in a solitary way. You appreciate a book just on your own. Some people do it in book clubs and things, but to do it at a community-wide level for a lot of people is a brand new experience. I think one of the things where, as far as I know, the Big Read Wichita is still very unique among the communities that receive these grants is the fact that we do companion titles for younger readers. And I think that's really important because one of the things this program is intended to do is to encourage families to experience reading all together and to get in that habit of reading no matter what age you are, for parents to demonstrate that, for working with their children to do that. And so I think that's one of the things that's made it successful and unique.
I think it's an important program in the community. It's come to the point where a lot of people look forward to it every year. We have book clubs who leave a space for whichever book we're going to do because they know they're going to talk about that book. We have partners who are going to find a way to link their programming into the Big Read every year. We have a lot of schools and universities who are longtime partners with us, and it allows us to create new programming in Wichita and new partnerships with the library that wouldn't be possible without these grants. I think that the momentum that goes behind the Big Read is really important in the arts community in Wichita. I think people in the arts community find ways to create new opportunities for viewing and making art, and we really value the partnerships that we have with museums and other cultural organizations in Wichita. We have a really great program planning team that works every year to plan the kickoff, the keynote, and 2 additional community arts events. We call those the feature events. And this team is made up of representatives from various museums and cultural organizations, libraries from surrounding communities, university and school librarian organizations, and all of the team works together to add programming and create new programming. And one of the exciting things that we get to do every November is get together to decide what the next year's Big Read is. And when we sit down, there are very passionate discussions over which title should be the next Big Read. And we go through the pros and the cons for the ones that are nominated. And when we're done, we sometimes go out into the community to see what kinds of resources we can find that will support that book. And in the end, we have to keep the chosen selection quiet until after the announcements of the grants are made the following year. So it's an exciting time to get to choose and plan for the Big Read, and we're always excited when we're able to announce what the next book is going to be.
A lot of people don't realize that the Big Read isn't a 6-week activity. It's really a year-round activity. And I would hesitate to even estimate the number of hours that Julie and the other program partners put together planning that. We barely finish one Big Read when we normally are having them in the fall. Before that group is coming together, having to identify the title for the next application. Then they spend several weeks working on that application. They get it submitted. They immediately keep going, honing on the program planning to go through. When they find out that we've received the award, which we have so many years, then there's a little bit of extra fundraising normally that has to happen, confirming partners, getting books ordered, getting program presenters confirmed, and before you know it, it's time to pass out books, have a kickoff, and jump right into the program. And I just, as somebody who has seen the program from the outside, has watched them work, can't say enough about that core group of people who make this something for our community.
You know, one of the things that the National Endowment for the Arts has done over a span of years is study the community about who is reading books for pleasure. And one of the things that they have found is that over time, people are reading less and less than they used to. And they have found that there's a correlation between people who read and people who are engaged in their communities. They're more likely to be voters, they're more likely to volunteer in their communities, they're more likely to serve on boards and be engaged in other activities in their communities. They also support the arts at a higher level. And so in many ways, communities benefit by having readers. And when you start young, then you develop reading as a habit and encourage young people both in getting them involved in the current Big Read as well as modeling for them that you should continue reading after your years in school are over. And we are reaching the age, this will be our 13th Big Read, and we're reaching a point where we may have some readers who have been with us since the very beginning.
One of the things that makes this year's Big Read Wichita really unusual is that this is the first time the featured book is by a living author who has already been to Wichita to talk about the book. When Circe was first released, Watermark Books was able to have this author come on a tour, and she actually came and did a presentation at the Advanced Learning Library. And we overfilled the conference center. Every seat was taken. There were people kind of out in the hallway listening, and they were people of all ages. There were teenagers, they were seniors, there were people who had just, for one reason or another, heard about the book, had read the book, or wanted to read the book and wanted to hear her talk about her inspiration for writing the book. And I think for me, that was a real clue that this was something that Wichitans would relate to, and it was a book that should be explored in our community in more detail.
Spellbinding, vivid and transporting, an epic page-turner, a romp, an airy delight, a novel to be gobbled greedily in a single sitting. These are some of the reviews for this year's Big Read selection, Circe by Madeline Miller. Her best-selling novel is about the lesser-known goddess Circe, who is a strange child, not powerful like her father Helios, nor viciously alluring like her mother. Turning to the world of mortals for companionship, she discovers that she does possess power, the power of potions and spells, which she can use to transform rivals into monsters and menace the gods themselves. Joining us now is Beth Golay, Director of Marketing and Digital Content for KMUW and host of the KMUW podcast Marginalia, to give us an introduction to Circe.
I'm so excited to talk to you about Big Read Wichita selection this year, Circe by Madeline Miller. And I think one of the things that I want to talk to you about is just how to approach reading it. Because I think a lot of people question, should I read Homer's Odyssey first? And the short answer is no, you don't have to. You can just read Circe on its own. But if you want to, I think it might enrich your reading experience a little bit. And there are so many different ways you can approach even Homer's Odyssey. One thing you might want to do is figure out who Circe is first, because Homer didn't invent her. In fact, in the Odyssey, I think she only appears in books 10 and 12. Circe is part of Greek mythology. She was around for, years before Homer wrote about her. And I think Virgil's Aeneid even has her in like chapter 7. And there are just a lot of different mentions of Circe throughout, different writings in history. But this book does focus on the legend of Circe, and it does involve a lot of the characters that appear in the Iliad and the Odyssey written by Homer. So I think what we need to do first is ask, who's Circe? Circe is a goddess. She is the daughter of the Titan Helios, who is the sun god, and the nymph Perse. And Circe is one of their 4 children, and she is a witch. And when she uses these powers, she is punished by her father, and she is exiled to an island. And, the story that we know from Homer's Odyssey is that she, when boats come ashore and when sailors come ashore, she turns the men into pigs and kills them. Well, that's the short story. That's one perspective. That's Homer's perspective. And what Madeline Miller's book does, it offers Circe's perspective. It is told through Circe. She is the one narrating the story. And, I think I like to think of it as we're learning about her world through her lens. There's this one child book, this juvenile picture book by John Sheska and Lane Smith. It's called The True Story of the 3 Little Pigs, and it's told by a wolf. And it's told from the wolf's perspective. And we learn through that book that, the wolf is completely misunderstood. He had a cold. He didn't really mean to blow those houses down. He just had a cold. He really was trying to befriend these 3 little pigs. And so, seeing that story through a different lens, I think it's an important lesson that there's always another side to every story. And that's what we get with Circe. We are told the story of the Odyssey through her perspective. If you do want to learn a little bit more about Homer before you read Circe, there are just a few different books and even editions that you can read. I read a juvenile picture book called Black Ships Before Troy. It was a picture book meant for kids, but it helped my understanding. It gave me that entryway into Homer. And then I also have a copy of a junior high version. And this one is less poetic and more prose, which made it more accessible to me. I have another version that's all prose, even though it's meant for adults. It doesn't have that, the sing-songy lines. And that's something important to know about Homer. If you do try this, the Fagel version, Robert Fagel's translation, it's very sing-songy, and Homer was meant to be told orally. You'll hear a lot of lyrics and lines repeated because that was a way the storyteller could just keep saying this refrain over and over. So you might read something and 20 pages later you're reading the same thing again. Well, it was intentional, and that's how they would remember the story, and they could tell it orally. One thing about reading a retelling or a reimagining is that you get to learn it from, a different point of view. And as I mentioned, we're hearing this from Circe's perspective. And this chapter starts off with this thought from Circe. Later, years later, I would hear a song made of our meeting. The boy who sang it was unskilled, missing notes more often than he hit, yet the sweet music of the verses shone through his mangling. I was not surprised by the portrait of myself, the proud witch undone before the hero's sword, kneeling and begging for mercy. Humbling women seemed to me a chief pastime of poets, as if there can be no story unless we crawl and weep. And I just love that from this mention, we understand that Circe has heard Homer's, his epic poem. He has heard what has been written about her. And we get to see it from her eyes, and we get to, it brings a little bit of the feminine perspective in this as well. And she touches on, through her story, we get to see how gods were treated, whether they were men or women, or lesser gods if they were men or women, or, men or women. It's a great study of gender. And it's just one fascinating aspect of this book. I really don't want anybody to hear Circe, Greek mythology, and be afraid of this book. This book brings Greek mythology to the reader in a way that just makes it so accessible. It makes it a pleasure to read. If you have no history with Greek mythology, you'll recognize a few names. Achilles. Everybody's heard of Achilles. You have one on your heel. But then there are other names that you might, have a better understanding of, like the Minotaur, and his name was Arterion. And you're introduced to Medea and to Jason, and you're reintroduced to Agamemnon and Hermes, which, if it's around your neck, that's not how we pronounce it, but when we're talking about the god, it's pronounced Hermes. And this is just a great way to reacquaint yourself if you do have a little bit of knowledge of the Greek mythology, or to learn it brand new. Now, one thing I do love that Madeline Miller does, there is a cast of characters in the back, which gives you even a better understanding and shows you where they show up in other works. And it's just, it's not something to be afraid of. And sometimes when you read this and you look at Agamemnon, it's not an easy word to read. It's not an easy name to read. So one thing I like to do is even listen to an audio version while I read, and it just kind of starts sealing those names in, and you start hearing them, and you hear the repetition, and pretty soon it's rolling off your tongue. So bottom line, do you have to read anything Homer related? Do you have to have an understanding of Greek mythology to read Circe? No, but read this book. Read it just for the beautiful story and the beautiful way it's told.
Hi, I'm Gail from Wichita Public Schools. And I'm Kelly, school librarian. And we're here because we're part of the Big Read Wichita Planning Committee. And we want to share with you the companion titles to this year's Wichita Big Read. Companion titles are selected so that people of all ages can celebrate the Big Read in Wichita. And we choose titles that have similar content, characters, and themes to allow ages to compare what they've read. This year's high school title is Lavinia. In the Aeneid, Virgil's hero fights to claim the king's daughter Lavinia, with whom he is destined to found an empire. Lavinia herself never speaks a word. Now Ursula Le Guin gives Lavinia a voice in a novel that takes us to the half-wild world of ancient Italy, when Rome was just a muddy village near 7 hills. Lavinia grows up knowing nothing but peace and freedom until suitors come. Her mother wants her to marry handsome, ambitious Turnus, but omens and prophecies spoken by the sacred spring say she must marry a foreigner, that she will be the cause of a bitter war, and that her husband will not live long. When a fleet of Trojan ships sail up the Tiber, Lavinia decides to take her destiny into her own hands. And so she tells us what Virgil did not, the story and the love of her life. From an interview with Ursula Le Guin, she pondered Lavinia's character and she imagined what Lavinia might say to her. And then she started speaking, the way characters do to their authors. And she definitely had a story to tell.
This year's middle school companion title is The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. 3 kids, 3 unusual talents, and 3 big problems. Jason, Piper, and Leo are on a field trip to the Grand Canyon's Glass Skywalk when they begin to find out who they really are. Turns out, all 3 are demigods. They're being protected by surly Coach Hedge, who happens to be a satyr. On the edge of the Grand Canyon, they fight an epic battle against the Venti, who are storm spirits, matching their wits and Jason's awesome gold sword against the evil wind and lightning of the Venti. Although they lose Coach Hedge in the battle, they all 3 survive. Soon, they're met by the Extraction Squad, 2 teenagers in a huge flying chariot, pulled by winged horses, who are not thrilled to find only Jason, Piper, and Leo, because they were sent out to find their missing friend, Percy Jackson. Read The Lost Hero to find out who Jason is, the secret that Piper is hiding, just what Leo is capable of, and what's going on with Percy Jackson missing. Watch as these demigods complete a quest in the first book of the Heroes of Olympus series.
Our intermediate book this year is Zeus the Mighty. Meet Zeus, a tiny hamster with a mighty appetite for power. His cage sits on the top shelf so he can watch the other pets from above. But being king of the gods is a tough job. You've got to issue orders and decrees and make sure to stay in tip-top shape by running on your exercise wheel. And most importantly, lead your minions on epic journeys. And Zeus the Mighty has one giant task in front of him. Find the golden fleas and solidify his position before the other gods rebel. Read to find out if Zeus can accomplish his task and secure his destiny. Our primary book is Dangerously Ever After, and Princess Amanita loves dangerous things. Her pet scorpion, her dagger collection, and above all, her garden of menacing and unusual plants. When cheerful Prince Florian shows up with roses whose thorns attract Amanita, she writes a note requesting rose seeds from his gardener. But her handwriting is bad, and the seeds grow noses, not roses. Imagine a garden of noses, and the sneezing, and the snoring, and the snot. You'll need to read this book to find out just exactly what kind of ever after is written for Princess Amanita.
Finally, the preschool companion title is Max and Ruby in Pandora's Box by Rosemary Wells. Max's sister, Ruby, put up a huge sign on the door of her room. No, this means you. This means you, Max, said Ruby. Can you read it? Yes, said Max. Ruby doesn't want Max in her jewelry box, so she puts up this sign and makes sure Max sees it. But when she catches him sneaking in her room to look in her jewelry box anyway, she decides to read him a story. It's a story about a Greek young lady named Pandora and the bugs that she unleashes by looking into the box she was warned never to touch. This playful story examines the magnetic pull of the forbidden, and young readers will love it. Visit bigreadwichita.org to find out more about finding these titles.
Hi, I'm Mayor Berner Whipple, and I'm excited and honored to serve as an honorary co-chair for this year's Big Read Wichita. For 13 years, this annual program has brought together residents of Wichita to share the joy of exploring a book, its themes, its characters, and its messages. And while this big read looks different than in past years, we hope you still take time to escape the crazy year we've had through the story of a misunderstood Greek goddess who is finding her way in the world. By participating in this year's Big Read, you'll explore themes of gender dynamics, the idea of immorality compared to morality, motherhood and womanhood, and fate versus free will. Circe is a complex book that weaves together the centuries-long journey of self-discovery, love, loss, power, greed, and family dynamics. I challenge you to read Circe by Madeline Miller, participate in the stellar lineup of virtual programs, and connect with other community members. Right now, we need that more than ever. Happy reading, Wichita.
Joining us now for 2 harp performances are Reddy and Faith O'Neill. Because the NEA Big Read Wichita is going virtual this year, we're looking at fun and different ways to keep you engaged while we explore Circe. Joining us now is Sara Dixon with the Wichita Public Library, who will share about the Beanstack Challenge, a new way for you to engage with the Big Read on your own time. Sara?
Hi there. I'm Sara Dixon with the Wichita Public Library. Since most of this year's Big Read programming is online, we wanted a fun, engaging way for you to interact with the Big Read community. Using our reading tracking app Beanstack, we've developed fun challenges, 24 of them to be exact, that you can participate in over the next 6 weeks. During this Big Read season, we have 24 ways for you to earn virtual badges, but we're only going to ask that you complete 8. Each is in some way related to Circe, Circe-related themes, or the Big Read to really have some fun and enhance your Big Read experience. Once you complete 8 of the 24 activities, you'll earn a really cool finisher prize. It's an art print from local artist Delilah Reed. And not only that, you'll be entered into our grand prize drawing. We've organized the activities into basic categories. Read, the Big Read book, one of our companion titles for younger readers or a read-alike. Create, we have a friendship bracelet, do a craft, write your own epic poem. Engage, plant an herb garden, make a Mediterranean dish inspired by Circe. Visit one of our Mediterranean restaurants or one of the programs offered by the Wichita Public Library or one of our partners. And there's so much more for you to explore. We hope you'll join in on the fun and share your Circe Mobile Challenge journey with us on social media. Use the hashtag BigReadWichita. If you have any trouble logging in or accessing Beanstack, please give the Wichita Public Library a call at 261-8500 or email us at reference@wichitalibrary.org. And now, why should you participate? 2020 was a strange year. Some of us found more time to read than ever before, and some of us had difficulty picking up a book amidst all the pandemic fatigue. Our hope is that you can engage with us, working through some fun activities, read a wonderful story, and join a community of readers even when we can't be together in person. So what are you waiting for? Grab your smartphone, download the Beanstack app if you haven't already, and join the fun. We can't wait to read with you.
Thank you, Sara. While we're talking about mobile apps, grab your cell phones or tablets and give the Big Read Wichita a follow on Facebook. And make sure you follow the Wichita Public Library on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram so you can stay up to speed with all things Big Read over the next 6 weeks. We're also encouraging you to subscribe and ring the bell on the Big Read Wichita YouTube channel to be alerted when virtual programs are set to premiere. The Big Read would not be possible without dozens of community partners who pull together their talent and resources to provide unique programs to the community based on characters, moments, and themes of each year's book. Joining us now is Alisha Gridley from CityArts, who will talk about an art project prominent in the book that you can do from the comfort of your own home.
Hi there, welcome to CityArts. I'm Alisha Gridley, and I'm excited to talk to you about weaving. In the book, Circe, the goddess witch, is seen many times weaving at her loom or dyeing threads. In ancient Greece, spinning and weaving were a big part of women's everyday lives, with cloth made from looms being a chore and a pastime. Towards the end of the book, weaving is also a way for Penelope and Circe to form a friendship. On January 23rd, we will host an online workshop called Small Loom Weaving, which will allow you to construct a small loom and begin weaving on your own. You'll be able to pick up your kit at library locations the week leading up to the program, and you'll work with us during a live Zoom workshop. More information can be found at bigreadwichita.org. I want to give you a little taste of what we'll make using the small loom during that workshop. When you pick up your kits from the library, this is what you'll find: a cardboard loom, some yarn, and a plastic weaving needle. During the workshop, I'll show you how to thread your loom and get it ready for your weaving. These looms are reusable, so you can use them multiple times for many different projects. And we're going to be doing a basic weaving technique, which is called a plain technique. And we'll be going over, under, and then we reverse that back and forth until we've completed a piece. The art of weaving dates back to 6000 BC, but it is something that we still use every day. From the gloves that you're wearing, to the t-shirt on your back, to the towels and the sheets on your bed, weaving is an art form that is very functional.
Don't forget to sign up for that fun weaving workshop on January 23rd by going to bigreadwichita.org. All of that weaving certainly will stir up an appetite, and luckily we have Sara from K-State Research and Extension, Sedgwick County, who will show us how to make some quick and tasty Mediterranean food.
Hi, my name is Sara. I'm a registered dietitian and the Nutrition, Health, and Wellness Agent
for K-State Research and Extension, Sedgwick County. Today I'm going to show you how to make a few Mediterranean recipes, or meze, which means little bites or snacks. But before we start cooking, I want to talk to you about what is a Mediterranean diet. It's not an actual diet, but a healthful way of eating. So it includes more vegetables, more whole grains, more fruits, seafood, olive oil, a little bit of red wine, which I know that's always fun to talk about with the Mediterranean diet, and a minimal amount of added sugar and processed foods. The Mediterranean diet has been shown to lower blood pressure, lower cholesterol, decrease your risk for heart disease, and promote weight loss in some individuals. So the only way to appreciate the Mediterranean diet is to try it. So let's get started. But before we do anything else, I'm going to wash my hands. Washing your hands often is one of the best ways to stop the spread of harmful germs that can cause illness, including foodborne illness. Make sure to scrub your hands for at least 20 seconds. Consider humming the tune of Happy Birthday from beginning to end twice. Let's make the tzatziki sauce first. Tzatziki sauce can be used in a variety of ways, from topping meats, salads, and sandwiches to dipping breads and vegetables. For this recipe, you will need 1 cup of grated cucumber, 1 cup of plain fat-free yogurt or Greek yogurt, 1 tablespoon of fresh mint chopped, 2 teaspoons of dried dill, 2 teaspoons of lemon juice, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 2 cloves of garlic, minced. I'm going to start by grating my cucumber. You can peel the cucumber first, but leaving the peel adds fiber. Fiber can help lower cholesterol levels, as well as your risk of diabetes and heart disease. Fiber is mainly found in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. I'm going to squeeze out the liquid from the cucumber with my hands and put on a large paper plate covered with paper towels to absorb the remaining liquid. Next, I'm going to cut up the fresh mint. A little tip to make it easier is take the mint leaves from the stem and place the leaves in order from largest to smallest and roll them over and then chop. It's a lot easier to handle and you get a nicer final product. Then I added the grated cucumber, the 1 cup of Greek yogurt. You could use plain fat-free yogurt, but I prefer the Greek yogurt instead for a more traditional version of the tzatziki sauce. Plus, Greek yogurt is higher in protein than regular yogurt. Then I added the fresh mint, the dried dill, the lemon juice, salt, and garlic, which I had already minced. I stirred well. Now you can serve immediately or refrigerate for an hour in order for those flavors to develop. As I mentioned, this recipe can be used a variety of different ways. I served it with some pita bread and fresh veggies. This recipe makes 14 servings and a serving size is 2 tablespoons. Now that we've made the tzatziki sauce, let's make hummus. This is a classic and versatile dish that you'll want to make over and over. This hummus provides protein, healthy fats, fiber, and iron. For this recipe, you will need 1 clove of garlic, 1.5 cups of garbanzo beans, 1/4 cup of tahini, 1/4 cup extra virgin olive oil, 1 teaspoon of salt, which is optional, pepper to taste, the juice of 1 lemon, 1 tablespoon of cumin or paprika, which is optional, and chopped fresh parsley leaves for garnish, which is optional as well. You can use a blender or food processor for this recipe. I chose to use a food processor because I had one available, but a blender will work fine. So I added the garbanzo beans, garlic, olive oil, the salt, which is optional, lemon juice, tahini, and the cumin, and then I turned it on to form a smooth puree. At this point, I suggest tasting the hummus and adjust seasonings as desired. To serve, pour into a bowl and garnish with parsley, spices, or a drizzle of olive oil. This recipe serves 6, and a serving size is 1/4 cup. As you can see here, I served it with pita bread and cucumbers. So now that we've made our tzatziki sauce and hummus, let's make the tabbouleh. For this recipe, you will need 2 cups of cooked bulgur wheat,
1/4 cup of lemon juice, 3 tablespoons olive oil, 4 garlic cloves minced, 1/4 cup of chopped mint, 1 cup chopped parsley, 4 medium tomatoes diced, salt and pepper to taste, and feta cheese, which is optional. We need to go ahead and cook the bulgur. So I took 1 cup of bulgur and 2 cups of water and put it into a saucepan and brought it to a boil. Once it reached a boil, I turned it down and simmered for 12 minutes. When it was done, I drained off any excess liquid with a colander. I put it back into the saucepan and fluffed. While the bulgur cooked, I went ahead and chopped the mint, parsley, and the tomatoes. You'll notice the recipe calls for 4 tomatoes and I only chopped up 1. That's the beauty of these recipes. You can really make them your own based on your likings. Once the bulgur was done cooking, I added lemon juice, olive oil, and garlic and stirred it up. Then I put it in the refrigerator for 30 minutes to chill. After 30 minutes, I added the tomatoes, the parsley, mint. I left out the salt and pepper as I can add that back in later, and I added some feta cheese. And I mixed it up. I added a little bit of feta cheese to garnish the tabbouleh. I added some olives as well and served it with some pita bread. This recipe serves 8 people and a serving size is 1/2 cup. And here are our final products. They look delicious if I do say so myself. These items are easy to make, anybody can do it. These dishes provide big flavor and important vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that are so essential right now to keep us healthy.
Hi, I'm Sean with the Wichita Public Library. Now is the time you've all been waiting for, free book giveaway time. If you've attended the Big Read Kickoff in the past, you know that at the end of the program, we always give a free copy of the book to all of our attendees. Since we're going virtual this year, you may be wondering, how can I get a free copy of this year's book? Here's how. From 5 to 7 p.m. tonight, swing by the Advanced Learning Library located at 711 West 2nd Street to grab your free copy of Circe while supplies last. Enter the Advanced Learning Library from 2nd Street and loop around the parking lot, making a circle. Library staff will have a tent set up at the main entrance where you can drive by and grab your book. We will give 1 copy of the book to each person who requests one. Multiple copies will not be given to the same person. We'll see you soon at the Advanced Learning Library.
Thank you once again for joining us for the virtual Big Read Kickoff celebration. We look forward to sharing the joy of reading with you over the next 6 weeks. Remember to visit bigreadwichita.org for information about the Big Read.